Initial anger was sparked by the Armenian government's plans to increase energy tariffs by 16%, effective on August the 1st. The increase would cost each household between $8 and $10 a month, enough to spark days of protest. To discuss the public disdain, I'm now joined live by an investigative journalist, Tony Gosselin. Tony, thanks so much for joining us here on RT International. So as we see, this is the third day of protest. What is your feeling of what's happening there on the ground? Are we likely to see more protests? What is it that we're likely to see in the days to come?
Well, that's difficult. I haven't got a crystal ball, but let's have a look at the massive hikes there have been in electricity prices in Armenia. Of course, people are going to be angry about this, annoyed about this. I think the actual cause of it is likely to be the sanctions on Russia, because Armenia is absolutely umbilically connected to Russia for its energy supplies. So this is almost certain to have played a big factor in all of this. Also, let's not forget how important Armenia is strategically, being there in the Caucasus. This is a pinch point between three big powers, that is to say Turkey, Russia and Iran, all sort of surrounding this area. And so if Armenia, for example, was to become more friendly with Turkey and the NATO countries, this would drive a wedge between the Russians and the Iranians. So, I mean, for many people, if you say Armenia, they don't know where it is on a map. But that's part of the game here, I think. And also, we've got to really understand how many of these protests that we see in the streets over the last few years, I mean, looking at Ukraine as a classic example, Victoria Nuland, the US representative there, said that the Americans have spent $5 billion on effectively trying to get the Ukrainian people through NGOs and pressure groups to support the US and the EU point of view. So they're playing for big stakes, and I think the crucial thing is to look at the protest. Is this a genuine protest, or is it being orchestrated from outside? I mean, this lunchtime here in London, we had a genuine protest of hundreds of disabled people who nearly got into the chamber of the House of Commons to stop Prime Minister's questions, to disrupt it. That, I think, is quite clearly that's a genuine grievance by disabled people here in Britain, who are basically being told they've got to stay in their homes. They're not allowed to leave in the future. So what's happening, is we've got to be very, very careful to see, is a protest a genuine protest, as it certainly is here in London, or is it being manipulated by foreign aid budgets and that sort of thing from abroad?
Certainly, but that won't be clear anytime soon, right? Because some investigation will be required to come to that conclusion for sure, to verify this. But, right now, looking at what's happening there and the pictures that you probably have seen, the images coming out of Yerevan, Armenia, why do you think these protests escalate so fast?
Well, it's because electricity is something everybody needs, and we're living in a world where, there just isn't, people just do not, particularly in that part of the world, have the surplus money to pay these bills. I mean, here in Britain, it's a similar situation where people are finding that they're working all the hours God sends, and they just don't have enough money to pay the bills and to keep ticking over. I think the utilities are a crucial area, and I think the Armenians have really got to look at providing the electricity at cost. I mean, we're looking at living in a world at the moment where we've had falling oil prices. Oil's quite good for generating electricity, although a lot of environmentalists don't agree. And they need to be providing all these utilities, that's things like water, all that kind of stuff, at cost if they want to keep their people happy. And it seems that in many countries, particularly those who have been influenced by the West in Eastern Europe, for example, these utilities have gone over to being controlled by private companies who just ratchet up the profits. And so that's another reason why the Armenians need to take a really good look, that is the government, at which side they're on, because there's a tug of war going on between East and West, between Russia and the EU and the US in Armenia, and the government needs to get a grip.
All right, Tony, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts and concerns with us here on RT International. It's always good to have you with us. Tony Gosselin, investigative journalist.
Thanks, Marina.